Hello, and welcome to a CES edition of One Cool Thing. I'm Dan Costa, editor-in-chief of PCMag.com, and I am joined by PCMag's Sascha Segan and Angela Moscaritolo. Hey, guys.
Hey.
Hey.
And we are, of course, joined by a special guest, Brenda Stolyar from Mashable. Brenda, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good. I'm hanging in there. CES is almost over. We're going to talk a little bit of CES news, but probably the biggest news of the day is a product that was launched during CES, but not at CES. What that means in a virtual world, I'm not exactly sure, but it's a much anticipated product, probably one of the biggest products launched this week, and that's the Samsung Galaxy S21. And Sascha, I understand you have your hands on this very device.
Can't we say that it's going to be one of the biggest products of the year? I mean, these phones are always bestsellers. Here's the Galaxy S21 Ultra in their super black, none more black color. And you can see all of the crazy cameras on the back of this bad boy. And then here is the small size S21 in their violet color with the nice little edge cut design here. I've only had them for a few minutes now, so I can't really say a lot about the hands-on experience, but I've got 10 other phones on my desk if you want to see them next to anything else.
So what's the key takeaway? Because leading up to this phone, there were some leaks and people knew sort of what the features were going to be. But I've read stories that say this is a incremental, small, insignificant upgrade over the S20, and stories that say it's a big upgrade and there's big changes inside the phone. We're going to test it. We're going to find out how it performs. But just in terms of the features, what's changed?
I think the way to look at it, and possibly the way to reconcile these two tacks, is to think of it as S20 promises fulfilled. The S20 line promised a lot of things, and it didn't necessarily deliver all of those things. But the S21 has a chance to kind of redeem those promises, and nowhere more, I think, than in the cameras on the S21 Ultra. The S21 Ultra now has two telephoto cameras. There's a 3x and a 10x telephoto camera. And they say that they will perform much better at the 50x and 100x zoom levels than the S20 did. The S20 Ultra's 100x zoom was awful. Also, it has a dedicated laser autofocus, which means that it won't have the focus problems that the S20 Ultra did. Now we also have because of the Qualcomm Snapdragon 888, the new processor, there's various new AI and ISP-related other camera features, like an improved night mode and the ability to take videos with multiple cameras at once, and an improved single-take mode, which selects out more compelling photos and videos from a clip. So it's all promises that were in the S20 series, but might not quite have been realized. And then, of course, there's the biggest promise and the biggest change, which is the price. The S20 series came out at a time when a lot of people thought that the economy was booming and we would be able to spend $1,500 for smartphones. The S21 series is $200 to $400 cheaper. The little guy is $800. This is $799 for this one. And that goes up to $1199 for this one. And that compares to, I'm trying to find my S20 Ultra. Here it is. This S20 Ultra was $1499. So that's a significant cut in price.
So Brenda, we should say, like, Sascha got his phone at 9 o'clock 2 hours ago. So he's just started charging them and getting them up and running. You've probably got a FedEx delivery person coming to your apartment now. You could get the phone any minute now. But you know the specs, you've talked to Samsung. What are your first impressions of just how it's configured and what the offering is?
So I think, with the S20 last year, that was the first time that the S series, received like a pretty big refresh over, from the last few years. So I think as with any new product or new design or anything, you're going to run into problems. So I think like the S20 were sort of like the first draft. They were proving that they could have 100 times space zoom, but I mean, we all sort of made fun of how grainy and bad the quality was. And they were, they introduced this new design that obviously, it was stunning to look at, but it was really fragile. And so I think there's now a focus on durability, especially with a phone like the Ultra, which is massive. I mean, it's a 6.8-inch display, and to take photos with it, I always felt like it was just going to, you know, with one hand, I always felt like it was just going to drop and shatter. And so I think they really realized that although that design was really nice, which I thought they were going to keep for years to come because they made such a big deal out of this, you know, all new look, I think they realized that it wouldn't work. And so they emphasized, you know, integrating the camera into the phone itself rather than sort of placing it on top with this glass exterior that not only created a really insane camera bump, but you also like were always afraid that you were going to scratch the lens or just, you know, the phone in general. So and then I think also with price, as Sasha mentioned, I think it, you know, when the S20 came out, we didn't know that we were going to be going through a pandemic. It was still February, didn't really hit the US quite yet. And so they continued that trajectory with the Note line, the Note 20 and the Note 20 Ultra. And by that time, releasing the Note 20 Ultra was sort of at the price that it was. Sasha, what was it? Also around 1,200, I think.
It's over 1,000.
Yeah, it was also a little tone deaf in a way, because it was like people are losing their jobs and here they are releasing this insanely expensive phone. So I was happy to see that price was definitely something they considered, especially because after the Note 20, they had also released the S20 Fan Edition, which, you know, took the flagship that packaged it into a more affordable phone, but it also didn't really, I don't know, it felt kind of random to me at that point because the S20 had been out for so long.
Actually, though, the FE has been tremendously successful. Like the FE has been a huge success because it took a lot of those S20 features, which people basically wanted, and put them in a $700 phone. And now I also want to point out, I'm waving around an S Pen here that I pulled out of my Note 20 Ultra because I wanted to show you one other of the key, actually new features in the S21 Ultra, which, now this is only on the Ultra, and I've got my Ultra here, I've got my S Pen here, and I don't know if you can see, but I am drawing on the screen. And this is the first S series phone to support the S Pen, and they will be selling accessory S Pens for this. There's a special case to put your S Pen into because there's nowhere to put it in on this phone. And that's an interesting elision between the S series and the Note series. I mean, I don't know, Brenda, do you think that they're gonna keep doing Notes?
No, oh no. I think the Note is officially dead. I think especially after releasing the Fold and realizing the stylus will be a lot more comfortable to use on a phone that is tablet-like sized. It just makes a lot more sense. I mean, I personally felt like I was forcing myself to use the stylus when I reviewed the Note. Like I just forgot that it was there. But if I have something like the Fold, which, you know, is a lot more comfortable to take notes on and to write on, then I'll definitely adapt to it better. I personally do not see a use case for the stylus on the S series, but I mean, obviously they don't want to let the Note die. I mean, they're trying to keep it alive in some way, shape, or form, and that's by offering the stylus and stylus compatibility. I think to pay for the Ultra and then to pay for a case that you can put, and then to also pay for a stylus, it comes out to a lot of money. I don't know.
Everyone should put their phone in a case, though. You buy a $1,200 phone, you should put it in a case.
I think so Brenda's point, you can hear her say it though, is that, and we've always known this, that there are people who want a stylus, and there are a minority of people. It's not an insignificant market. And I was just doing a radio show this week, and somebody was telling me how they love their Note, and they love the stylus that's attached to the Note. And I'm like, look, you have very limited options, and I think it's a good thing that Samsung continues to sort of super serve this little micro audience. Brenda's not gonna. It doesn't sound like Brenda's ever gonna be part of that audience.
Yeah, I think I started using it a little too late. Maybe if I kind of started earlier, I'd be used to it by now. But for me, it was more so like familiarizing myself with it and incorporating it into my like mannerisms when I'm using my phone. It's just like not something that I automatically think of, especially when I can just type notes super quickly. But but yeah, I agree. There is that niche group that still thinks the stylus is essential. So I think it's a great way for them to keep it alive. But yes, I do think the Note family is dead.
Announcement, but happens during CES, so we're sort of lumping it in together. But there have been lots of CES announcements this week. We talked about hardware and TVs yesterday. You can find that on YouTube. But Angela, you cover health and wellness for us as well as smart home. There have been a ton of developments there, and actually, I would argue some of the most interesting products that we've seen and technologies that we've seen launch have fallen into those categories. So tell us a little bit about what you've seen, not necessarily on the show floor, obviously, but in the news feeds that are related to CES.
Yeah, so some of the most interesting things that I've seen for sure are the plethora of COVID-19 related technologies, and that has been a big trend at the show this year. One of the things we saw, which I thought was pretty ingenious, is a video doorbell that when you ring it, it takes your temperature and then it will tell you, it's called the Eddy. And it's just a prototype at this point right now. There's no availability details, but that's like a lot of the things that we hear about at CES. But it will tell you if you're allowed to come in or not. Like if you have a fever, then you're not allowed in. And then if you are allowed in the house, it will keep a record with your picture on the homeowner's phone in the app. And your time of arrival and date of arrival and your temperature. So if anybody does come down with COVID, that makes contact tracing a little bit easier. LG released or announced a COVID-19 killing autonomous robot that will kind of rove around businesses and use UV light. We see a lot of UV light sanitization products, definitely no shortage of them since the pandemic hit. But LG's robot is designed for like hotels and schools and things like that to sanitize common surfaces. And it will actually have like motion sensors in it to avoid exposing humans to UV rays. So kind of interesting there. A bunch of different smart air purifiers. And then also we're seeing a ton of mask tech. So in 2021, your face mask can do more than just filter germs right now. Like if you are a gamer and you like colorful gaming rigs, Razer's Project Hazel can have the same thing for your face. So it's got like 2 ventilators, one on each side, and then you can customize it to shine in like anything from 16.8 million different colors. So you can almost be like, you're like at a rave there with any day. So yeah, tons of COVID stuff.
I mean, that mask is ridiculous, but I love it. And it's part of why I love Razer is because I really feel like they go to work every day and they just look around the world and they go, could we put LEDs on that and synchronize it? And the answer is always yes. We can add LEDs to that, and this is a great example of them doing that. And it has amplification too, so it can actually amplify your voice so that people can hear you when you speak through the mask. So classic Razer, classic CES.
Yeah, and it's practical. It's an N95 medical grade mask, so probably better than your dirty cloth that you wear on your face every day. I know,
Criticizing my dirty cloth?
You, me, everyone. So, I mean, beyond that, we've seen a lot of wellness stuff, a lot of smart home stuff, some interesting, some humorous. The Toto wellness toilet was one of the funnier ones, but actually could be kind of useful. It is a smart toilet that when you sit on it, when you go number 2, it analyzes your poop and it analyzes your poop and basically so digestion is so important, such a big part of overall health, and it will look for it will analyze that, and then it will, in its app, it will give you dietary recommendations based on how it looked. And that is another prototype. Hopefully we'll see, maybe it'll reach market, maybe not. So yeah, a lot of different things.
So let's step back a minute because the show is mostly over. We're coming to a close. Most of the big announcements have happened. Overall, first virtual CES ever, new for them, new for us, new for the industry. What are the takeaways from the last 4 days? My sense is that there was still a lot of news. There were still a lot of product announcements. All the things we sort of expected to happen happened. And we're going to have a list of all the weird technologies that we saw in the last week, which I don't think will disappoint. But let's just go around the horn and see. I want to know what your impressions are as you've been covering your beats. And maybe we start with you, Sascha.
To me, one of the biggest reasons to go to a place like CES is to uncover the unexpected story, to find the booth that no one has noticed, to ask the right person the right question, which gets an interesting answer. And unfortunately, I don't feel like a lot of that came out of this CES. The virtual nature led to a solid flow of product announcements, but they were all very tightly packaged and all very much all very much just kind of the press release and the materials from the company, which of course we can figure out the trends in and try to wrap together and try to say, what does this mean? But it didn't really let us go below or beyond what the companies were trying to present to us. What's
your experience, Brenda?
I agree. I think that the beauty of CES is having the opportunity to write those stories from, the perspective of like, I tried this and it was crazy, like those kind of like those narratives that I always loved to read before I went to CES myself, where it was, you get these hands-on experiences rather than just listing specs and information and maybe this will come out and maybe it won't. And it sort of felt like we didn't really get to exercise that creative side of our writing. We kind of all just wrote the same things and then tried to add some sort of spin on it as far as like trends, like Sascha mentioned. So yeah, I think as much as people complain about the craziness of CES and how hectic it is, I will never complain about not attending one again, I think. So definitely made me appreciate it more. Yeah, I think it shows the value of being, out there and on the show floor. So hopefully we'll be back.
Amen. How about you, Angela?
Yeah, as I mentioned, a lot of the vendors trying to cash in on the news of the moment, COVID-19, with different technologies there. And I mean, on the health and fitness front, we didn't see as much. And I think that in years past, there have been, CES was really used as the launch pad for a lot of the wearables that we saw. And we would tell people, wait until January to get a new wearable because you'll see a bunch of new ones. But now that's not the case really anymore, especially with the all digital show. We're seeing companies in the health and fitness front releasing their products throughout the year, like Garmin, Polar, Apple. I mean, they're all on their own launch schedules now. So, I would say for people looking for new health and fitness tech, don't wait. There's so much good stuff out there, and we have tons of coverage of that. And then look for things throughout the year.
I'll say one of the things that I think was actually better in a virtual CES are the keynotes. Like, I love watching a streamed keynote. I generally didn't ever go to keynotes at CES because I thought they were a waste of time, huge lines, not a lot of information. But a streamed keynote running in the background, I enjoyed them immensely. They were well thought out, they're well scripted, and it's okay that they're scripted because you didn't have to wait in line to get into the room to get the information. So the virtual keynote, I think, is a big upgrade.
I totally agree. The not having to wait on those darn lines, and Angela,
well, you guys don't like waiting an hour or two in line with a laptop at your back?
Exactly. And a keynote isn't going to be a place where you are able to ask someone an unexpected question anyway. So for those kind of broadcast one-to-many experiences, the virtual show really stands out. Where it fails is in the attempt in one-to-one experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and we should say for many years, Angela was the reporter who was dedicated to going to all of those keynotes and standing in those lines.
Oh yeah.
And then, so thank you for your service, Angela. You're doing, I think, more fun things now covering health and wellness and fitness tech for us.
I agree, but one of the things that I really liked at CES, we have a lot of memories, all of us, I'm sure, but seeing John Legend in concert front row at one of the keynotes, like, you can't beat it, but that you can't get that digitally.
That's totally true. Totally true. And I'll say I had a similar experience with Taylor Swift at a Sony press conference,
What?
which is totally unexpected.
Ah.
And I'm not a huge Taylor Swift fan, but she was amazing.
I am.
So guys, thanks for doing this. We're just about to wrap up another CES. If you want to get more CES stories, you can read our stories on this at PCMag.com and of course Mashable.com. Thanks so much for joining us. And if you leave a message in the comments, we will endeavor to get back to you. Thanks a lot for doing this, guys.